It's barely being able to pass through the floodwater. Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel, he has been there all weekend long. He is in Jacksonport, Arkansas this morning. Mike, good to see you. A lot of the rivers cresting yesterday, some of them today. What is the setup for Arkansas?
Well, here in the White River, outside of Newport, about an hour and a half out of Little Rock, off I-57 north and northeast of Little Rock, the White River is forecast to crest late Wednesday morning. Right now it's running at about 31 and change, about 31 and a half feet, the last observation just a little bit a while ago. It's expected to crest about another foot higher, about 32.5 feet. That's the forecast. It may not be exact. This is what we see out here this morning at the state park. This is a road that goes into the water. Actually, it goes around and goes that way. The other road goes that way. You can see everything is underwater. This is the White River, which flows all the way down to the Mississippi. It starts up there in those mountains near Fayetteville and then goes up into Missouri, comes back down through here. So the flow is this way from right to left. By the way, the flow has increased dramatically, more than tenfold since a few days ago. It was running at about 14,000 cubic feet per second. Now, last measurement, about 10 plus that X, 154,000 cubic feet per second. Now, the thing is the advantage here in the Newport area is they've got a levee around most of the town. So the town's in pretty good shape. We drove around yesterday afternoon when we got here, and it was hard to find any homes being impacted. Yes, there was some water on the streets. The city park, the playground was underwater, but by and large, the town is in pretty good shape. And even when the water comes up another foot, despite what we see here, most of the people are in pretty good shape in the homes and businesses here in Newport, north of Little Rock. One thing I do want to mention is this is not the only road closure in the state of Arkansas. Right now, we've got about 50 to 55 spots that are marked with an X on the map from the Arkansas DOT, the iTravel website, showing you where the roads are closed. Keep in mind, major interstates, 57, 30, 40, they're all wide open. Now, I-57, we can show you this from yesterday. They did have a bit of a closure, one lane, so one lane northbound. You can see the right lane is covered with water, and that was the case earlier this morning up this way. As the water continues to come down, that rest of that interstate will open up. But again, it's still open. It's just not open two lanes in some sections. By and large, the weather could not be any better after what we've been through over the past 4 to 5 days. A foot of rainfall in Little Rock, and now the sun is going to come out this morning. I looked out the window about 3:30 this morning and saw the moon. I was like, oh my gosh. Actually, blue skies and sunshine today. Temperatures this morning a little cooler than average. It's in the mid-40s. Highs today up in the mid-60s. And by Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be back in the mid-70s. No threat of rain, no threat of severe weather. So all in all, it's the best forecast you could hope for this time of the year. Humidity is going to be rather comfortable. Things will be able to dry out as these floodwaters recede. But again, the river here forecast to crest late Wednesday morning. And as far as forecast or as far as the power outages go, this morning, Britta, 27,000 customers statewide. That's down from about 115,000 at the peak. That was 2 days ago after that bow echo and squall line came through Little Rock and points east with wind gusts 70 to 80 miles an hour. And the two most impacted counties, this county, Saline, the county that Little Rock, not this county, but Saline and Pulaski counties down around Little Rock in those areas, Conway, about 9 to 10% of those customers are still without power. But the power is coming back on. The waters will recede from these rivers that haven't crested, and the sun is coming out. So that's about as good as it gets early on a Monday morning here in Arkansas.
Especially considering what's going on in some neighboring states, Mike. Good to hear that the water's not getting into homes. At least we can avoid the river as best we can. I do want to talk about the process of cresting. So I feel like a lot of people, they just want to know, when is the river going to crest? And it's like this magical point where all of a sudden everything's better. And that's not how it works. It's really a crescendo up until that moment, but then a decrescendo where the water is still, very swollen. I mean, you said it yourself, we're only going to have maybe less than a foot to foot of additional rise. But right now, this is the process of cresting, what we're seeing behind us, behind you.
Yes, it's not coming up very fast. And it's not going to go down very fast, especially here in Newport on the White River. Now, yesterday, we were on the river down there in Benton, and it was cresting as we got there, and it was obvious it was going down. We saw it go down about 2 feet late yesterday morning and early yesterday afternoon. That river went up and is coming down much faster. It's a narrow river, and it's also a function, Britta, of how much water is flowing in from other tributaries, creeks and streams. This river, again, will end up in the Mississippi. The other rivers sometimes go to, say, the Ouachita River or the Atchafalaya River, then it goes into the Mississippi. So there's a lot of calculations that go into this, including rainfall, which is now off the table. Now it's just a matter of getting all the water in and drain down towards the Mississippi.
Yeah, and thankfully, a lot of these spots, it's coming in below their historic crest. So we actually have a history to go off of. This is how long it took back then. This is the active weather conditions that they had. It makes the process a lot easier to get through. That's Mike Seidel reporting live in Jacksonport, Arkansas. Mike, thanks for the update. We look forward to seeing you when the sun is up. We're going to head to Jacksonport, Arkansas. There's Mike Seidel, our Fox Weather Storm Specialist. Mike, behind you is just a swollen river.
Yep, that's all we've got here. The White River here outside of Newport. This is Jacksonport. This is the state park. The road goes down this way and goes around. Where should the river be? The river should be back behind the trees. That's where it should be, within its banks. So it's come all the way up here. Still rising this morning. Last check, 31.63 feet. Flood stage, 26 feet, and it's expected to go up to about 32.5 feet. The impacts in town are minimal. They've got a really nice berm levee system here. So we couldn't find any homes that were impacted yesterday, even though the river has come up a little bit since yesterday. It's these roads out here in rural Arkansas. We've got about 55 locations on the travel map where we have some road closures. Now, these are not interstates. These are mostly state highways, county roads in low spots. Speaking of a low spot, this is I-57. On the way up from Little Rock yesterday, one side of the northbound lane was closed because of water lashing at the asphalt. Same case in part of that road stretch this morning, but that should ease itself off over the next day or so. But at least the interstate has one lane open. The other interstates 30 and 40 are not impacted. But when you drive around this area, all the way to Little Rock, everywhere you look, the farms are underwater, the farmlands. You look off to the side of the road and the ditches are full, the culverts are full. As far as the river goes, expected to crest today, but it's going to take a while to go down. Now, yesterday, the Saline River crested about the time we got there, about 4 or 5 in the morning, and then last night it had already fallen below flood stage, dropping over 8 feet. That's not going to be the case here. The forecast right now keeps this above flood stage through about Wednesday, late Wednesday morning. Now, that could be adjusted. What we're looking forward to is sunrise this morning here in northeastern parts of Arkansas and across all of the Mid-South. The sun is coming out. Everything's going to be drying out, and temperatures are going to be coolish. Right now, about 44 this morning. A little out here, cooler than average. But the week ahead, no severe threat, no more tornadoes, no more straight line winds of 80 miles an hour, and no more rain on the docket for the rest of the week and even likely through next weekend. So that's the best news overall, Britta. And power outages are coming down, 115,000 at its peak. Most of those occurring because of that squall line and that bow echo that went through where we were in Sherwood late on Saturday morning, and now things are beginning to come back on. 115,000 now, down to about 27,000 customers this morning. Most of those in Saline and Pulaski counties down around the Little Rock area. And we could tell that yesterday, Bertie, you know why? The restaurants at lunchtime were wall-to-wall, standing room only. That's right. We went to the Waffle House on I-30. We left that one, went to another one, and decided to wait and wait it out. But it was just crazy yesterday. And I talked to some locals, and I said, well, you know, it's Sunday, it's after church. He said, no, it's never this bad. So everybody was trying to get out and get their food because a lot of folks have electric in their houses. They don't have, like, gas stoves. So they were all out trying to get a nice hot meal yesterday down there in Benton, Arkansas.
Yeah, after this long of a stretch, you can understand how that first hot meal means a great deal. So nice that you got to be part of the good side of this when folks finally do get to have that hot meal. That's Mike Seidel reporting live in Jacksonport, Arkansas. Mike, thanks for the update.
Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel is joining us out of Jacksonport, Arkansas, with more on this. So behind you, you have, what is it, the White River. I was noting where you were, because over the weekend, Mike, you were also in Benton, Arkansas, covering the Saline River. So two examples where we had the runoff, but we continue to see things quite swollen even this morning.
Yeah, the big difference with the Saline River is it came down rapidly yesterday. It crested early in the morning before sunrise, and by later last evening, it was down below flood stage, so it dropped about 8 feet. This is going to crest here today, but then stay above flood stage until Wednesday morning. Right now, we are at 31.77 feet. 31.77 feet. Flood stage, I was going to say, is 26. So we're almost 6 feet above flood stage, and it's going to crest. Forecast 32.5, so it's going to go up about another 9 or 10 inches. The good thing here in Newport, we've got a big berm and levee system. Yesterday, we could not find really any direct impacts in town around houses and businesses. But out here at the state park, the roads go into the water. This one goes out that way and then makes a right here at the state park. The river should be behind when it's in its banks, but it's up about 25 feet above what it was 4 or 5 days ago. It should be beyond that first level line of trees and then out to the bigger thicket of trees in the background. So it is way out of whack and still flowing this way. It all ends up, guess what, in the Mississippi River. In fact, it goes right down to the Mississippi down in southeastern parts of Arkansas. The flash flood warnings are done. The flash flooding is long over with. Now it's all about the river flooding and getting the rivers down. Fortunately, on the Saline River and this river, we're not going to set records. Fortunately, the record's almost 36 feet. We're going to do 32.5. That would be catastrophic and would impact certainly more businesses and homes in this area. So it will crest. The good thing also this morning, what is this? We haven't seen much of this in a while. Sun is out here. Skies are a nice cobalt blue. Not a cloud in the sky for the first time in days. So the threat for rain and severe weather and flash flooding is over with for the next 5 to 7 days at least. That is a good thing. But along with this road closure, we've got about 55 other spots in Arkansas, primarily north and east of Little Rock, that have road closures. These are mostly just county roads or state roads. Most of the closures aren't very long, but you have to do the detour, the go around. But if you're traveling through Arkansas, the interstates are open, 30 and 40. There was and still is a bit of an issue on I-57, one lane northbound closed in a few spots because of the water coming up the Saturday night into Sunday. But Marissa, just an incredible amount of rainfall. I mentioned the stat yesterday. Little Rock, 11.82 inches of rain. That's their third wettest 4-day period since 1875, for 150 years. So it gives you an idea of the scope of how much rain we had. And then we had the severe weather, that squall line, that bow echo that we talked about on Saturday midday, early afternoon, which produced wind gusts near us at the Air Force Base north of Little Rock of 69 miles an hour. The power outages just skyrocketed in a few hours. Late Saturday afternoon, 115,000 customers were without power. This morning, it's down around 26,000. So we're getting the power back on. Hardest hit counties still remain Saline and Pulaski counties. That's down around the Little Rock area. And this morning, about 9 to 10% of those customers without power. Yesterday, it was crazy at the restaurants at lunchtime. Of course, after church, a lot of folks go out to eat, but you throw that and the fact that power was out to so many, you could not even get in the door of restaurants. I mean, everything I rode by, the parking lots were packed. There were no parking spots anywhere. We actually found a couple of bar stools to sit at a Waffle House on the way back to Little Rock. So we finally got our food, which was good, a good hot meal, and good hot meals for a lot of those people that had no power and could not cook at home.
I heard you made it to a Waffle House. Hey, I want to ask you too, just in terms of how it feels, because you talked about the sun returning, but it is noticeably cooler. I was looking at the temperatures around 40 degrees. You have freeze warnings to the north. You have frost advisories for tomorrow morning. I mean, so to be without power and this dramatic drop in temperatures, also notable for this state.
Yeah, it's not record cold, but the average low right now, Little Rock's about 50. We're down in the 44 to 45 degree range this morning. But up in the Ozarks and the northwest corner of the state, Fayetteville, those areas, yes, tomorrow morning temperatures down around freezing. Not the latest freeze on record, but certainly if you've got tender plants out on the porch, bring them in. Here this morning, it's crisp, but nobody's complaining because we've got the sun and dry weather. And also, as I mentioned, I think over the weekend, a lot of times you have this flooding in the summertime and it's hot and sticky and humid, and it just seems like it takes forever for anything to dry out. You just can kind of feel the mold and mildew literally in the air, but that's not the case today. Everything is crisp and the humidity values will be nice and low compared to what we've seen. And the fact that we don't hardly even have a cloud in the sky is probably the best visual of the morning out here at the state park.
The best news we can really give Arkansas, at least to start the day. Finding the silver lining through all of this, just glad we can put hopefully the week behind us, work towards improvements. I was saying it earlier, Arkansas really has been at the apex of all of this. With the way the front's set up, it really did take some of the hardest hits when it came to rain and severe weather. So we appreciate that update. Mike Seidel out of Jacksonport, Arkansas. Thank you. The video he took of the interstate. I believe that's I-57, but we'll ask Mike about it. But I believe you mentioned, Mike, the video we showed leading into your hit was video you took. You were traveling on I-57, Interstate 57, where we still have some lanes that have been inundated with water as a result of what river would that be? Would that be the White River?
I'm not sure what exactly was causing that issue because it started yesterday. Jared Maloney, the weather producer here, shot that video. I went around that, and when I hit I-57, I was fine. But when you come up 57, and like across a lot of these areas, not only in Arkansas, but Kentucky and Tennessee, there's a lot of farmland, and it looks like giant lakes everywhere. There's water standing everywhere. Fortunately, it's not, they haven't put their crops in yet, so we're going to get that water down this week because look at this. How about this, huh? Mr. Sun is back. It's going to stay out through next weekend at least. No more severe weather, no more flooding. Flash flooding has ended. That's where the water comes up and goes down pretty quickly. Speaking of that, though, yesterday in Benton, we were on the Saline River, and it crested yesterday morning at 4:30 in the morning. And by last night, it was below flood stage, so it went down pretty quickly. This is the White River in Jacksonport, not far from Newport. And we're going to pan over a little bit. Mike Hall, can you pan over and show the berm and the levee system? They have a very good levee system. And in the distance, if you look close enough, those trees that have been really just ransacked, that is damage from the EF4, high-end EF4 tornado about a month ago in nearby Diaz and hitting this area too. 190-mile-an-hour winds clocked. Not a whole lot of houses hit because it's very rural, but the house that had the damage was total. There's 3 others in that area too. So we've got that from a month ago. They're still, dealing with that psychologically, those homeowners and the people in the area. And then we have the flooding. The river should be back behind this first row of trees right here. And I'd say that's about maybe 100 yards. I'd say about 100 yards. And then that would be the river where it should be within its banks. Right now, Marissa, it's about 25 feet above where it was before all this rain fell last week into Saturday. The rain ended Saturday night. Little Rock with about a foot of rain. Some other gauges up over 14 to 15 inches of rainfall. And thankfully that is gone and we have dry weather moving in. So the key now is to get the rivers down and get them within their banks. This one will crest today, but it's not going to drop as fast as the Saline River did yesterday and last night. It's not expected to get back below flood stage, which is 26 feet. That would be a drop of about 7 feet, around 7 feet between later today, but not until late Wednesday morning. That's the current forecast. Maybe it happens faster, and until then, the campground's closed, the state park is closed, and that's the issue with these roads. And there are about 50 to 55 other locations on the Arkansas DOT map where there are road closures. And keep in mind, these are not the major interstates. These are county and state highways. And most of the closures are not very long, but they're near creeks, rivers, and streams. And you either have to find a detour. And some places there really aren't any options but to go way around. So that water will come down in the next couple of days along with this. But you got to remember, Marissa, the water goes downstream to the Mississippi, and I checked the river gauge on the White River in Des Arc, which is about an hour drive from here. going south and maybe a little east to south. And the river there doesn't crest until next weekend. Right now, forecast to crest next Sunday. So it goes to show you that the push has to come down the river. We see that all the time, like on the Mississippi, as the crest moves down from north to south.
It's one of the points, right, that we've been focused in on. So the White River is one of many rivers that eventually exits into the Mississippi. You also have the joining of the Ohio River. Everything is swollen because of all of this rain that has continued to funnel down. So the cresting, especially for the Mississippi, to your point, won't be till maybe into next week. A very delayed reaction. I'm glad also, Mike, because I was about to ask you about that tornado. That was an EF4 tornado out of northeastern Arkansas that impacted the town of Diaz, Arkansas. And that was a deadly tornado. When you think just overall, the spring season so far, March and through April, has been extremely challenging, if not downright dangerous, across this state.
Yeah. Remember 3 weeks ago, I was up in Minnesota and North Dakota Fargo area for the snow, but on the warm side, that Friday night was just incredibly sad. We lost, last time I checked, I don't know if it's been updated, but Friday and Saturday, and most of the fatalities were on Friday and Friday night, 42 from tornadoes, mostly from tornadoes. And so that really kicked off the deadly severe weather season. And now we've had 4 to 5 days of not only flooding, but some tornadoes, but most of the deaths this time around were caused by either, drowning, freshwater flooding. And remember, many people drown in their cars because they go out and drive around barriers, or they go out at night and they just don't know how deep the water is. So we all, we say turn around, don't drown, but it's especially tough at night to see what's going on. For instance, if you were coming down this road at night, Marissa, there's no really artificial lighting out here. All you have is your headlights. You could drive right into this. And again, it's not flowing very quickly, but if it was flowing quickly and you drove into this, you're going to be out of luck. You're going to go down river. So that's why we tell you to turn around, don't drown. And not all roads have barriers up. With flash flooding, the water comes up pretty quick, and officials don't have time to get out and put barriers on all these roads. So that's why we always urge you to stay put, stay home, stay on higher ground, and let the water recede, especially at nighttime.
Yeah, I know it's going to continue to be swollen for some time, but hopefully we can put, any more tragedies behind us. And a lot of people have to move forward now with this stuff. It's just been rough. Nearly 20 lives lost out of this latest round. So we will continue to check in on it, and we're not done yet. Mike Seidel out of Jacksonport, Arkansas, with that update for us on the White River. Thanks, Mike.
No, we're still tracking it, right?
We have Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel, who is in Jacksonport, Arkansas, with the very latest. Mike, you've spent some time now, the past couple of days at least, in the state of Arkansas. Yesterday, you were in Benton, which has been feeling the impacts from the Saline River. Now we're in Jacksonport with the White River, which is also quite swollen. And I mean, I'm even looking at the current behind you. It looks quite fast.
Yeah, it looks like it's picked up. Of course, now we have daylight, and that's the key here. Not only daylight, Marissa, but we have actual wall-to-wall sunshine, not only today, but for the entire weekend and next weekend. Severe weather, forget about it. Flash flooding, forget about it. We still have the river flooding. It takes a while for rivers to drain. All the water has to come in from creeks and tributaries into the main stem, like this one, the White River, which, by the way, ends up in the Mississippi. It doesn't go through any other rivers. This goes directly down to the Mississippi. This is going to crest sometime today. Right now, it is at 32, I believe, 0.17 feet. The projected crest now, 32 and a half. So we're right below the forecast crest, and it has come up through the morning hours. But look at the water going through here. Not a whole lot of debris. That is great to see because we've seen situations like over in Kentucky where you see parts of houses going by. Newport is a few miles away. Diaz is next door, where we had the EF4 tornado about a month ago. Those areas are fine because they're inside this levee system. We'll show you the levee system. Mike Hall will pan over. You can see all the water. This road goes down towards the beach and the campgrounds. They're all closed right now. But in the distance, you can see those trees, those big trees which have been shredded. And that was from that EF4, high-end EF4, back in mid-March. And there weren't a whole lot of homes hit, but one of them had the structure and the bolts left behind in the foundation, and that's how they got that rating of 190 miles an hour. Back here, we're going to wait for this river to recede, but it's going to take a while. Not like the Saline River, which went from flood stage and the crest down below flood stage yesterday in about 8 to 9, well, actually about 12 to 15 hours. This is going to take until Wednesday morning. That's the forecast for the White River to get back below flood stage, which is 26 feet. It is now up about 25 feet since last week. We were at 7 feet, and now it's up over 32 feet. So 25 feet higher than it was before the rain came in. The riverbank should be back beyond that first row of trees, that thin row of trees, and then it would extend over to the thicket of trees in the distance. So we got a lot of water here, and the flow has really picked up. It was around 14,000 cubic feet per second before the rain hit, and now it's up around 160,000 cubic feet per second. So the flow rate has increased about 10 to 12 times from what it was, all that water coming in and going down towards the Mississippi. Great weather today, Marissa. The wind out of the north-northwest, a nice dry airflow, dew points coming down. Temperatures today will be cooler than average. Average high now, Little Rock is in the low 70s. We'll be in the low to the mid 60s today and tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, northwest Arkansas, frost advisory or freeze warning. So it's going to be chilly, not record-setting cold, and then we'll warm up nicely by Wednesday and Thursday. But a nice turnaround in the weather pattern. Unfortunately, this is what's left over. Rivers over their banks, roads closed. But again, a good reminder, the interstates are fine. It's the back roads, the county roads, some of the state highways, and there's about 55 or 60 X's on the Arkansas travel map where there are closures. Some of them may only be like a quarter of a mile long, maybe at a creek or a stream, but sometimes you'll have to do these go-arounds or these long detours to get around. But the major highways are fine this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it is wild because they were under that stalled boundary for several days. So to have the sun back out, even if it is a little bit cooler, to your point earlier, it's more of a north wind, northwest, so that'll help dry things out. But until we get these rivers to go down, you brought up the tornado from March 14th. I mean, that was a significant outbreak, over 100 tornadoes from the 14th over to the 16th. This was one of the more powerful ones, an EF4. So I think, Mike, overall, it's just been a very challenging month or so for these people in Arkansas, especially the northeastern part of the state. I hope we can get them at least another day of some quiet weather. They've
Psychologically.
Psychologically,
yeah,
yes.
Psychologically.
Yes.
Because you had the, and granted, it didn't go through a subdivision, but I saw the area where they saw the EF4 damage, found it. It's just 3 or 4 homes just leveled, but there's not much else around it. That's the good thing, if there's anything about this part of the world, and a lot of areas like in the so-called Tornado Alley, it tends to be very rural, and sometimes we'll have some really nasty-looking tornadoes like the one last week, and it was very visual, but nobody was killed because it can miss the towns and has to thread the needle to actually hit a town. Diaz is a very small community. Touchdown, well, over here too, but again, it's just trees, and then it hit those homes a few miles away, and then that was it. It did not really impact Newport, but you've got everybody there seeing the pictures, and now this, where you got 4 or 5 days of unrelenting rainfall, and there was additional severe weather. We showed you that live on the air on Saturday, late morning, with that squall line, and those winds gust to 69 miles an hour at the Air Force Base north of Little Rock. So there's been all kinds of issues and impacts. So it's nice to see clear blue skies for the foreseeable future here, not only in Arkansas, but Memphis. They're still going through a lot of issues in Kentucky. We've got a crew there, and down into parts of Mississippi and parts of Missouri. Those 6 or 7 states that really felt the effects of the stationary boundary and also the upper level jet stream energy that kicked off those daily rounds of severe weather, the worst being last Tuesday.
Yeah,
last Wednesday, the 2nd.
Yeah, this front triggered some of the most dangerous of weather, and you were talking about the Lake City, Arkansas tornado. It was a powerful tornado caught on camera, but no deaths associated with that one. Either way, I hate to say it because it's cliche when you say folks are on edge, but they quite literally have been on edge almost every week because of this weather, making sure to watch the sky. And so a quiet stretch ahead where people can kind of take a deep breath and get back to being outside. Mike, we appreciate that update out of Jacksonport, the northeastern part of Arkansas. As we to Mike Seidel. Mike, you've been hanging out in Arkansas. You were in Benton, Arkansas yesterday. Now you're in Jacksonport, which I believe is pretty much just northeast up I-57 for the most part. Let's start with the good news, right? It's been a lot of heavy stuff over the past week. The sunshine, and you pointed this out earlier, for one of the first times in what, a week, we have the sun that is shining back down on Arkansas today.
Yes, what the heck is that, Marissa? I had to put some sunscreen on. You know, the sun angle right now is as high as it is right around Labor Day. So keep that in mind, even though it may be cool out, getting the amount of radiation coming in, the amount of sunburn you get is based on the calendar, not the temperature. Back here, the temperatures this morning down around 40, about 45 in Little Rock. Tomorrow morning, frost and freeze advisories and warnings, respectively, in the northwest corner. This is the White River, and it continues to come up. Last check, 32.17 feet. Expected to crest this afternoon at about 32.5, so that's about another 3 or 4 inches up. And we've seen it come up through the morning. It was back there, and you can see the flow from right to left. This is all going down to the Mississippi River. This river doesn't go into any other rivers directly, and it flows right to the Mississippi at the Mississippi and Arkansas state line. We'll pan over. This is the berm, the natural berm they've put up, the levee system around Newport in this area. If you're inside this, you're in good shape. We drove around yesterday for about an hour, several of us, the whole crew, trying to find any kind of impacts on homes, and we didn't see any. But in the distance, you can see the impact, the memory from that tornado. Luckily, did not kill anybody, but was a high-end EF4 back in mid-March at neighboring Diaz, but it came through down past the levee and just nailed those trees. And I saw the area where the EF4 damage was, and it's just like a bomb went off. Back here, the road issue is really the big concern right now if you want to try to get around, especially in the northwest or northeast corner of Arkansas. If you look on the Arkansas DOT travel map, there's a lot of X's, and that tells you where there's a road closure. You go in on them, and most of those are just county, some state highways, and they're not very long closures. Basically, where there's a creek or a stream, where it's a low spot in a field, just remember that. And as Marissa said, turn around, especially at night. You just don't. Can you imagine? I talked about this earlier. Coming down here at night, there's no lights out here, and you're driving 30 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, boom, you're in the water. And it's going pretty quickly downstream, and you can get swept away. So that's why they say don't go around these guys. What's it say here? Road closed, do not enter. Don't go around them because that's for your safety. One thing is for sure, no more rain this week. I can almost guarantee that. No more severe weather, no more flash flooding. It's just a function of getting the rivers down. This river crests today, but will not get below flood stage, which is at 26 feet until sometime Wednesday morning. But as I mentioned, even if it comes up 6 more inches, it doesn't really impact homes and businesses in 99% of Newport. It's basically the state park. The campground is closed down the way. And I asked about the state park and the campground about the bathrooms and everything. I didn't know this because I've never been here to camp, but they're up on stilts. So that's a good thing because they're right in the floodplain of the White River. So Marissa, good news all around today from the weather perspective. No more flash flooding. It's just a matter of time to get the rivers down, and we're in better shape here than they are in spots including western parts of Kentucky, where they've had a lot of homes submerged, and the remediation, or they have to be torn down and start over, water rescues. But right here in this area in Jackson County, we're fine. Power outages still coming back on. We had about 115,000. That was the peak after that bow echo came through Little Rock and headed towards Mississippi. That was early Saturday afternoon. And now it's down around 25,000 customers. So the power crews are getting the power back on across Arkansas.
Yeah, they've been working incredibly hard. And oftentimes we see with these crews is that they've been impacted themselves, maybe in their community or their home. But just a wild, I guess it'd be the past month, right? You brought up the EF4 that went in through Diaz, Arkansas, not too far from where you are. And then the storms that we had over the weekend that were severe, and the flooding. I mean, Mike, it has been so heavy, so much of the spring season so far that we're happy to at least bring the sun out for these folks, and hopefully the power will follow.
And keep in mind last week, every day tornado watches, flash flood watches, warnings, tornado, flash flood warnings. You know, it's like, when is it going to hit again? And so people do get on edge, even though in this day and age we have an excellent warning system from the Weather Service through social media. People get their information and they can get to safe ground. Unfortunately, we still lost at least 19 people, and some of them driving in their cars where they should have been just stay home, stay on the higher ground, and don't venture out, especially after dark. But all we can do is get the information out, and our viewers have to, you know, parse it and do what they want to do with it.
Yeah, hat tip to the National Weather Service, the Climate Prediction Center, the Storm Prediction Center, everybody working in conjunction to make sure the proper warnings were out. And Arkansas really was at the center of so much of this activity. Mike Seidel in Jacksonport, Arkansas. Appreciate that update.
In Jacksonport, Arkansas, that is the White River, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's the White River. Mike, how are things looking there? Has the river crested yet, or does it have yet to crest?
It's going to crest this afternoon here in Jacksonport. Right now at 32.41. The forecast crest is just a hair above that. But for all intents and purposes, the impacts are non-existent in town because they've got a very nice berm system and levee. Let's show you that here, out here, just about 10 minutes from downtown Newport. And notice the water up on the road there. That's the road that goes to the campground. By the way, the campground, everything is elevated on stilts, the bathrooms and the beach. See that 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign? When I was out here yesterday about 4 p.m. in the afternoon, the water was just lapping at the base of the sign. So you can see it has come up another foot or so, and it will go down starting later today, but it's going to go down very slowly. Unlike the Saline River yesterday in Benton, we saw the crest 4:35 in the morning, and then last night it was already below flood stage, so it dropped about 8 feet. This particular river is not going to go down that fast. Expected to drop below flood stage, which is 26 feet sometime on Wednesday morning. That's the current forecast. But the takeaway I want to give you is the fact that the water right now is about 25 feet higher than it was before the rain hit. So the river should be in behind that first row of trees, and then over to the thicket in the background. That's the basic river, but it's way, way over its banks. You can see the current going by from right to left. And Ari, the thing we talk about is turn around, don't drown. We showed you the sign earlier that says do not enter, and these signs are here for a good reason. Now imagine coming down this road in the middle of the night and it's raining, you got your lights on, but you can't really see anything, and all of a sudden you're doing 25, 30 miles an hour right into this, and you could just be swept downstream. So that's why we urge you to, obey the signs, especially at night when you can't see how deep the water is, how fast it's flowing. You come up on this, and sure, you're going to see water in the distance, but if you're driving, like I said, 25 miles an hour, you're in the water before you can react. So the best bet is just to stay home. A lot of folks get killed, they lose their lives in freshwater flooding. That's the #1 killer for hurricanes. Not the landfall, not the surge, but the freshwater flooding. People go out and venture out and they get caught, and we had those issues this past week. We've got at least 19 fatalities, and many of those could have been avoided. So the sun is out, Aubrey. That's what that is. Mr. Sun. Boy, that sun angle now like early September. So keep in mind, throw on the sunscreen. The temperature right now is running in the upper 40s, although it doesn't feel like with that very potent sun angle here in the early and mid part of April. Ari, all that's left now is for these rivers to go down. The flash flooding is over with. The only closures on the highways are much like this. Now, this is a state park, but there are public highways, mostly county and state highways, that have closures. If you look on the Arkansas DOT map, they use X's, and there's about 55 to 60 of those late this morning. And if you go in and click on an X, you'll see that the closure is very short in most cases. But you can't get through there, so you got to do a go-around or a detour. So that's the issue in the next couple of days. Those will all disappear and go away as the water goes down. But I can tell you, coming up from Little Rock yesterday from Benton, every farmland, every field, every farm is flooded. You know, maybe just a little bit, but there's areas, you look left and right off I-57, and it just looks like lakes and more lakes. You're wondering if that's a pond or a lake, but it's just flooding, but it's a lot of flash flooding. And now that we have this great weather in here for the next 5, 6, 7 days, that water will drain out and the farmers will be able to get into their fields. It's good that we didn't have this during the growing season.
The farther north you live, the faster the crest happens and you start to get on the better side of things. But man, people that live farther down toward the south, like down in parts of the southern part of the Mississippi Delta,
Well,
I mean, we're talking weeks that the river's going to be rising for
Well,
some people, right?
yeah, I can tell you, Des Arc, which is downriver in Arkansas, about an hour drive down a little south, a little east of south from where we are on the White River. They're forecast to crest next Sunday. So that surge, that crest works downstream in most cases. And then that water gets into the Mississippi. You've got all these the Ohio River, the tributaries going into the Ohio, into the Mississippi. So eventually we're going to see some kind of a crest work down the Mississippi. Whether it's major flooding remains to be seen. This, although it's high and it's the highest it's been since 2017, 8 years ago, is about 4 feet below the record crest here. So we're not in record territory, but certainly up there in a top 20, I believe a top 20 crest of all time.
Always great insight from Mike Seidel out there in Jacksonport, Arkansas. Appreciate the time there, Mike. We'll check back in just a little bit. Marissa, let's talk.